Here are the cast and the characters they play. Pepperwadi Shanzamorn. Pink Bloy. As Palai Wadanafat. Palai. She is a feisty woman from a wealthy family, whose parents were killed in a car accident on their wedding anniversary, which she later learns was not an accident but a premeditated murder. Following her parents' deaths, she attempts to protect and recover all of her inheritance, which has been wrestled away from her, by her step-aunt, Rissaya, with the help of her late father's loyal employees and friends. Meanwhile, she must contend with her mentally ill stepsister, Jane Jiang, who accuses her of stealing Siwa, the man she loves. She initially tolerates Jane Jiang even after Jane Jiang demotes her to housekeeping department in the company. However, she loses her patience with Jane Jiang after she damages her parents' belongings. Despite the fact that she is no longer a member of the company's management, she begins to devise strategies to exact revenge on Jane Jiang, and recover all of her parents' assets that have fallen into the hands of her step-aunt, Rissaya. She needs money to carry out her plans, which she doesn't have much of. She steals information on an unscrupulous businessman, Sorasak, from Tana, her lawyer boyfriend, and uses it to obtain the funds she requires. She blackmails Sorasak's son, Siwa, into marrying her. In exchange for him marrying her and giving her money, she will reveal information about his father's illegal business activities to Siwa, and keep those information hidden from the public. She is forced to undermine her own company in order to carry out the plan. After she marries Siwa, she moves into his house and uses this opportunity to investigate his father, Sorasak. However, her moves are discovered by Sorasak. Although she is being threatened by Sorasak, she is unperturbed. Her relationship with Tana suffers greatly, after he learns of her marriage to Siwa and her stealing information from him for personal gain. Just when she believes she has the upper hands over Rissaya, she is confronted with unexpected problems. Betrayed by her servant, Sorasak is able to detect all of her conversations and movements. Her attempt to obtain incriminating evidence against Sorasak is thwarted. She and her assistant are also falsely accused of plotting to murder Jane Jiang. Evidence and witnesses, who could have proven their innocence, have also vanished. Simultaneously, she faces death threats from Sorasak, only to be saved on several occasions by Siwa. She establishes companies to pose as phony customer of Jane Jiang, and dupes Pramern into owing her a large sum of money without their knowledge. Rissaya is in serious financial trouble as a result of her plans. Rissaya coerces her into giving up her company stock, in exchange for Jane Jiang dropping her murder case. She willingly relinquishes her share to Rissaya, because it has always been her intention to leave the sinking company to Rissaya, and allows Rissaya to bear sole responsibility. Risaya's lover Pramern is forced to give up his share of the company, and return them to Palai, due to the dire situation. She believes that by pushing Rissaya into the dead end, she will eventually return all of the shares that she has seized from her. As her plans begin to get momentum, Rissaya becomes more aggressive and resorts to various ways to confront her. Meanwhile, her relationship with Siwa suffers, after they both misunderstand each other, and believe they have returned to each other's ex-partner. Artitangwa Bunpanat. Bank. As Siwa Ratanarith, Siwa. He is a capable young man who helps his father, Sorasak, run his pharmaceutical company. He is, however, unaware that his father has been engaging in illegal activities for many years. His mother tries to match him with the daughter of her friend, Jane Jiang, who happens to be Palai's stepsister. He misidentifies Palai as Jane Jiang when he first meets her. When Palai blackmails him into marrying her using information about his father's illegal activities, he agrees because he, too, wants to know what his father has been hiding from him. His marriage to Palai is only on paper, but Palai has moved into his home. He and Palai squabble frequently, but they begin to care for each other without realizing it. As much as he despises his father's involvement in cheating and unethical business practices, he sacrifices himself to protect him. His company is in trouble after his father's actions are made public. After his father goes on leave, he musters the courage to confront the problem on his own. He suspects Tana of leaking damaging information about his company to the public, and confronts him. They both begin to hold grudges against one another, since, on a few occasions, he saves Palai from being killed, unaware that the person who wants her dead is his father, Sorasak. Although he disagrees with his father's unethical business practices, he hopes that after his company is embroiled in a scandal, his father will change his ways. He forbids others from accusing his father further. He has always considered his father, Sorosok, to be his hero, so he is devastated when he eventually learns that his father is responsible for Tana's father's death. He begs Tana not to take matters into his own hands against Sorosok, but he won't stop Tana from filing charges against his father. During this time, he and Palai, who is also going through a difficult time, confide in each other, and set aside their egos by confessing their true feelings. Palai assures him that he is the only man she loves, whereas he claims to have never loved Jane Jiang. A series of instances in which he witnesses Palai and Tana together leads him to believe that Palai still loves Tana. While he chooses to remain silent about this, his feelings for her grow. When Palai's life is threatened by her step-aunt, Rissaya, he arranges for her to relocate to the province, in order to protect her. At the same time, he approaches Rissaya and proposes to her a peace deal where he will fulfill her demands, in exchange of her staying away from Palai. Sapalasawak Moon Kong. Great. As Thanakorn. Tana. He is Palai's boyfriend, whose father, also a lawyer, was murdered by the man they were investigating, Sorosok. He has no idea that Palai has obtained information about Sorosok from his tablet, and is using it to blackmail Sorosok's son, Siwa. He is devastated to learn that his girlfriend has married Siwa, the son of the man who murdered his father. He confides in his doctor friend, Nichata, who likes him, and drowns himself in alcohol. His relationship with Palai begins to suffer greatly, to the point of almost breaking up. He is abducted and assaulted by Sorosok, because Sorosok believes he is working with Palai to investigate him. Meanwhile, he is also confronted by Sorosok's son, Siwa, who accuses him of leaking detrimental information about his company. Simultaneously, someone offers to sell him evidence implicating Sorosok in his father's murder. However, his attempt to obtain it fails, after the involvement of Palai and Siwa. He is disheartened by his failure, and begins to drink again. He easily loses his temper and acts rashly, much to his mother's dismay. During this time, he is being taken care of by his friend, Dr. Nichata, who, unbeknownst to him, likes him. After surviving an attack by Sorosok's men at his own home, he moves to Dr. Nichata's house for safety. He eventually comes to his senses, and decides to bury the hatchet with Siwa, who has no objections to him filing charges against his father, but will not help him incriminate his father. Pimp and Shalai Nakuth. Pim. As Rasi Kangamrawi. Her mother was Palai's maternal grandfather's mistress. She claims Palai's grandmother mistreated her mother, and vows to exact revenge by seizing control of Palai's family fortune. She orders her lover, Pramern, to murder Palai's parents, and forces the company's lawyer to join her in forging signatures in order to transfer ownership of Palai's parents' assets to her. As Palai still owns a portion of the company's shares, she pretends to be nice to her, while she plots to trick Palai into giving up her shares. Despite her knowledge of her daughter, Jane Jiang's lack of ability, she promotes her to a senior position in the company. She frequently argues with Jane Jiang about work, and her constant fights with Palai. She orders her lover, Pramern, to do dirty work for her, but she is unaware that he records their conversations, and uses them to threaten her into giving him half of the shares she owns. Her stance against Palai hardens, when she discovers that Palai is in possession of damaging evidence against her. Her attempt to kill Palai, which is carried out by Pramern, fails, and nearly kills her daughter instead. She takes advantage of this situation, and accuses Palai and her assistant of attempting to murder her daughter. She proposes a deal to Palai, in which her daughter agrees to drop the charges against her, in exchange for Palai's shares in the company. During this time, her heavily indebted lover, Pramern, goes missing, leaving her threatened by his creditor, because Pramern uses her as his guarantor. Palai continues to inflict harm on her, and gradually gains control of the company. In her desperation, she resorts to blackmail and even gets Pramern to kill her. Just when she feels there is no more way out to her problems, Siwa appears and offers her a deal. He wants her to put her hands off Palai, and in return, he will fulfill her conditions. However, her plans backfires on her after her daughter, Jane Jiang, learns that she is responsible for Palai's parents' death. Coca-corn song term. Gook-geek. As Jane Jiang Amrawi. She has a mental disorder and goes insane at the slightest provocation, behaving erratically. After her mother is in charge of the family following the death of Palai's parents, she behaves arrogantly with Palai, whom she dislikes. Her dislike for Palai turns to hatred when she accuses Palai of attempting to steal the man she loves, Siwa, from her. After surviving a suicide attempt, she is pleased to get engaged with Siwa, who is pressured by his mother to do so. She is pleased and proud of herself for demonstrating to her mother her ability to manage a large project. Her joy, however, is short-lived, as she is unaware that she has fallen into Palai's trap, potentially causing the company to lose a large sum of money. She survives a car explosion which is originally planned to kill Palai by her mother, after being saved by Palai's assistant, Kitty. However, at the insistence of her mother, she gives false statement to the police and accuses Kitty of attempting to murder her instead. Her mental state improves after she defies her mother and discontinues taking medication. She begins to accept that Siwa does not love her, after failing to win his heart despite her best efforts. When she learns that her mother, Rissaya, is upset about Pramern's actions, she suggests that she report him to the police, oblivious to the fact that her mother is the true perpetrator of several of Pramern's crimes. She is devastated when she finally finds out her mother was the one who killed Palai's parents and vows never to trust her again. Chirma Wisuan Panuchok. Prayu. As Dr. Nichata. Ex-girlfriend of Siwa, sister of Nut. She is Siwa's ex-girlfriend as well as Tana's friend. She secretly likes Tana and frequently visits his house, under the guise of visiting his mother, who is her patient. She dislikes Palai because she sees her as a selfish woman, who sells information stolen from Tana, and marrying another man without Tana's knowledge. She blames Palai for causing problems and endangering Tana's safety because Palai's actions have annoyed Sorasak, prompted Sorasak to target Tana as well. Pan Pajfunin. Katu. As Nut Piamarun. Assistant of Siwa, brother of Dr. Nichata. He overhears his boss's father, Sorasak, phone conversation and begins to be suspicious of him. When he learns that someone is attempting to harm Palai, he suspects Sorasak to be that person. Concerned for Palai and her servant, Pang, he warns them to be more cautious if they choose to stay at Siwa's house any longer, but stops short of mentioning Sorasak's name. He has tried to inform Siwa of his suspicions about Sorasak, but Siwa stops him before he can go any further because Siwa does not like it when people talk negatively about his father. Dilik Thong Watana. Mu. As Sorasak Rathanarith. Father of Siwa, an unscrupulous businessman. He is a former doctor who ran an abortion clinic before starting a pharmaceutical company. He distributes unapproved and expired drugs by changing their packaging, causing his customers to become ill and, in some cases, to die. When he discovers Tana's father, Winelop, a lawyer, is gathering evidence of his illegal activities, he kidnaps and later murders him, after Winelop refuses to hand over the evidence he has. He discovers Palai, who is staying at his house, is investigating him. He threatens her but she is unperturbed by his threats. In order to monitor Palai, he threatens her servant, Pang, into working for him. With Pang's help, he is able to track Palai's movements and plans, using her phone and other electronic devices. He manages to thwart Palai's attempt to obtain evidence of his murder of Tana's father. His attempts to kill Palai, however, fail because she is saved by Siwa, whom he has instructed his men not to harm. In his attempt to prevent incriminating evidence that are against him from falling into the wrong hands, he is tricked by Tana, who disguises as Palai to meet him. He has no idea that the person he is meeting is Tana, who is out to kill him. Angsana Baranan. Moy. As Durrani Rathanarith. Siwa's mother. Her relationship with her husband, Sorasak, is strained despite living under the same roof, and unable to have a proper conversation with him without ending in arguments. She dislikes Palai because she is no longer a wealthy heiress. Additionally, unlike Jane Zhang, who always pretends to be nice in order to please her, Palai is blunt and has no qualms about disrespecting her. A sickly and narcissistic woman who believes no one likes her, she suffers from depression and drowns herself in alcohol, before seeking refuge in a temple. Watsaporn Wadanakun. Iyam. As Mina. Palai's loyal assistant at the office. She is the devoted and trusted former general manager of Palai's father's company, but she is demoted as a result of Rissika's takeover. She recognizes Rissika's animosity toward the company, and assures Palai that she will stand by her side to protect her from Rissika. Together with her boyfriend, Kitty, who is also loyal to Palai's late father, They assist Palai in her mission against Rissaya. Kitsiti Puan Prayong. Bank. As Kitty Sangathep. Loyal employee of Palai's father, boyfriend of Mina. He is a long-serving employee of Palai's late father and grew up with Palai together. He regards Palai as his sister. Following the death of Palai's parents, he recognizes that Palai is incapable of confronting Rissaya on her own, and offers his assistance in helping her reclaim what Rissaya has taken from her. He and his girlfriend, Mina, even postpone their wedding to focus on helping Palai. He discovers traces of evidence that suggests Risaya's lover, Pramran, may be responsible for Palai's parents' death, and sets out to find more evidence to incriminate Pramran. His wariness of Pramran enables him to save not only Palai's but also Jane Jiang's life. However, Jane Jiang unexpectedly accuses him of attempting to murder her and reports him to the police instead. The Atinan Suwanasak. As Woot. A close friend of Palai's father. He considers Palai to be his sister, and is committed to assisting her in carrying out her plans against Rissaya. He feels indebted to Palai's parents for assisting him and his family when they were in need. He not only aids Palai in plotting against Rissaya, but he also foils Risaya's plot against her. He is successful in forcing Pramran to transfer his shares back to Palai, restoring Palai as the majority shareholder of her father's company. Poonpoon Park Sicha. As Paeng. Palai's servant. She is Palai's loyal servant, who moves into Siwa's house with her, after her marriage to him. She falls into the trap set by Siwa's father, Sorasak, and is threatened by him. Sorasak forces her to betray her boss, Palai, or she and her sick mother will face consequences. Feeling guilty for betraying Palai, she tries to leave her, discreetly, only to be apprehended by Sorasak, who forces her to perform another task against Palai. Her betrayal of Palai not only causes her plans to fail, but it also nearly kills Palai. Feeling guilty, she eventually musters the courage to confess to Palai, and promises to help her from then on. She puts her life in danger to assist Palai in obtaining information from Sorasak. Punpadahapanyapol. Paul. As Pramran. Brother of Pranam, lover of Rissaya. An avid gambler, he is the brother of Palai's senior servant, Pranam, but unlike his sister, who despises Rissaya, he has an affair with her and regards him as her husband and Jane Jiang's stepfather. He does dirty work for Rissaya. He messed up Palai's father's car at Risaya's request, resulting in their deaths in a car crash. He secretly records his conversation with Rissaya, and uses the recordings to coerce her into assisting him whenever he gets into trouble, and to threaten her into giving him half of the stock she owns. He obtains a large order for the company and persuades Rissaya to accept it. The order, unbeknownst to him, comes from Palai's, who is using it to trick him into becoming indebted to her. He flees Rissaya, after causing problems for himself and her, vowing vengeance on Palai and the man who orchestrates the plan, Woot. Ratri Witawat. As Fanorm. Senior servant at Palai's house, sister of Pramran. She is a long-serving servant of Palai's family, who remains loyal to Palai even after her parents' deaths. She dislikes Rissaya because she can see through that she has malice towards Palai. Even though Rissaya is the lover of her brother, Pramran. She is at odds with Risaya's two new arrogant servants, and is not afraid of them even when they try to bully her. Palai, who is aware of this, warns the two servants not to bully her again. When Palai moves to Siwa's house, she hopes Palai will return to her family home again as its rightful owner. Nathaloid. Mai. As Kumkayao. Mother of Tina. After her husband dies as a result of his investigation into Sorasak, she begs her son, Tina, to refrain from getting involved in his father's case, and instead leave it to the police. However, Tina continues to conduct his own investigation into Sorasak. Unable to bear it any longer, she decides to leave the house after Tina nearly being killed by Sorasak, and drowns his disappointment by drinking excessively. She asks Dr. Nichada to assist her in caring for her son during her absence. Treen Setachok. As Marutwat Hanafat. Palai's father. Kochakorn Nimakorn. As Pankay. Palai's mother. Pimchanok Kayulumyai. Mean. As Nungnuk. Secretary of Rissaya. Smith Anahshut. As Winelope. Tana's father. An aunt. Police friend of Tana who is investigating Sorasak. Jarusiri Puwanai. As. Wayne. New servant of Rissaya. Juan. New servant of Rissaya. Credit to Thai Channel 3. Thank you for watching.